Interesting times for the headlines. President Duterte has blamed Mar Rojas, former Interior and Local Government Secretary, for the bungled operation that left 44 Special Action Force troopers dead. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake jolted Taiwan on Thursday, according to the USGS, disrupting traffic and injuring 17 people. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has supervised the test firing of a new tactical weapon with a powerful warhead, state media reported, in the first test of its kind since nuclear negotiations with Washington stalled. And nearly 4 weeks after President Trump declared himself completely exonerated, Americans will on Thursday, U.S. time, get a chance to see the evidence themselves with the release of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's final report on the Russian meddling in the 2016 election. I'm Alma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world. Thank you very much for joining us, and now to the news. President Duterte has blamed Mar Rojas, the former Interior and Local Government Secretary, for the bungled operation that left 44 Special Action Force or SAF troopers dead. He said the former DILG secretary needs to explain why soldiers and not urban policemen, police commandos, were deployed to conduct the anti-terror operation. He also asked why it took so long for the government to send reinforcement to save the SAF troopers under siege by these lawless elements. Let's listen in.
Ang hinakit ko sa kanya ganito. Yung sa mama sa pano, tapos na to eh. May dalawang, there's two questions bugging me. Maybe until I die, hindi pa ito pumasok ang mga sundalo madaling araw. Kasama ang mga Amerikano, nakuha nila yung isang finger ni Marwan. Pag-withdraw, bakbaka na. Namatay 44 lahat. Massacred. Unang tanong ko, bakit pulis ang pinapasok mo? The police was created to address urban terrorism. Kung may barila na dito, bahay por bahay. They are not intended to fight in the jungles or in the mountains. Well, although they had trained as commandos. Pero bakit yung mga taga-Maynila ang pinadala mo? But 6 kilometers away, nandoon yung 4th Division. Nandoon yung Army. May Scout Ranger yan, basta Division. May Scout Ranger, may mga Special Forces. Bakit mo pinadala ang... So magtanong ako kay Rojas, siya yung DILG, bakit siya pumayag itong mga pulis? Kalalaki pa ng tiyan, oh. Exercise kayo. Bakit ang pulis ang pinadala niya? Na hindi nga alam ang terrain. Doon may kampo, may brigade, pinakamalapit. Ang division nandyan sa Maguindanao. 4th Division, tapos may brigade. Bakit hindi niya utusan ang mga sundalo na labas-pasok naman sila dyan sa Mamosapano? Encuentro dito, encuentro doon. Bakit ka pumayag? Bakit din mo sinabihan si Presidente, Sir, huwag mong ipadala yung polis ko. Siya yung DILG. Ako sabihin ko talaga, Sir, bakit polis ko ipadala mo? Bakit hindi army? Bakit kayo lang dyan nag-uusap at pinapasok ninyo yung sa pag-extricate nila ay yung bakbakan? Madaling araw pa ang bakbakan, natapos gabi. Ni wala lang mang isang kwites na tulong, isang bomba o isang helicopter. Merong TOG, helicopter, about 4 or 5, Davao City. Jensan may mga 5 yan. Awang may about siguro 6 na helicopters. Bakit hindi inyo tinulungan? Naipit na buong araw bakbakan hanggang gabi. Why did you feed them to the lions to be eaten? Anong klaseng deal yun? Matanong ng hanggang hindi talaga lumabas yan. Ako, ayaw ko naman kipag-away kay Rojas. Hindi ko nga nilabas to ng eleksyon eh.
Meanwhile, the president also took a swipe at the former President Aquino for his alleged poor handling of the incident. Take a look.
Ngayon, ang katabi ko, ang ISAP chief. Sinabi ko sa kanya, prangkahan mo ako, ano ang nangyari? Sabi niya, Mayor, huwag mo lang munang patay lahat. Ko, bakit? Walang nag-reinforce? Walang order. Baski yung asset sa taas, wala. Walang. Kaya ngayon, ganito to. Ang kasama ko si Bong, aide ko yan eh. Pero nandyan si Mayor Beng, klima ko. Pagbalik niya, alam mo ang tanong ni Presidente Aquino sa general na isa? Sabi niya, General, sinabi niya yung pangalan, if you were there in charge, what will you do? Nung narinig ko, sabi ko, Mr. President, I have a flight to catch. Pero wala. Sabi ko, lilipad ako. Wala namang airplano, gabi na eh. Tumindig ako because that was a very, very stupid question. Nangyari na, patay na, bakit magtanong ka pa? Kung ikaw ang nandoon, anong gawin mo? That's a hypothetical idiocy. Kung nangyari na, patay na lahat. Yung question na yan. Bakit pulis at bakit walang tulong buong araw hanggang gabi?
Now, Rojas previously claimed that he was kept out of the loop in the Mamasapano operation conducted by the police. He also defended the former President Aquino, saying his orders for proper coordination were not followed during that operation. The January 25, 2015 operation, where the SAF 44 were killed, aimed to neutralize Malaysian terrorist Zulkifli bin Hir, alias Marwan, who was also killed. On February 21, 2017, President Duterte signed Proclamation number 164 declaring January 25 as National Day of Remembrance in honor of the heroic death of the SAF 44. Meanwhile, at the same venue, President Duterte asked China to stop surrounding Pag-asa Island in the West Philippine Sea. He warned that just one harmed soldier could precipitate trouble. In a PDP Laban campaign rally in Batangas, the president also made the statement after the armed forces of the Philippines said that a rise in the number of Chinese fishing vessels have been discovered near the Philippine-occupied island since January this year. But the president said waging a war also with China is unwise, since he doubted that other nations, including the United States, would be willing to take part in the conflict. Again, let's listen in.
Kaya istorya lang muna. But there will be a time, at sabihin ko sa China ngayon, that they should also meet halfway. Kagaya ng mga mangingisda natin, tapos yung palibutan nilang yung Pag-asa. Yung Pag-asa Island, sinabi ko, huwag ninyong isurround kasi may mga sundalo ako dyan. Pag nagkamali yung nag-warning lang ako, hindi ko tinatakot ang China. But it could precipitate trouble there. Pag namatayan ako ng sundalo baski isa, gulo na yan. Pero ngayon, magsabi ka, mag-fight ako sa China. Okay? Who will come? Sino? Magbigay ka ng 5 magtulong sa atin. Amerika? Magsusay kayong Amerika ng nuclear war para sa atin? Kasi pagka nag-nuclear war, ubos man tayong lahat sa mundong ito. Gusto nila na I will confront China. Pag ginawa ko yan, it will be a massacre. Diyan pa lang, paalis ka pa lang sa... Ang eroplano nila kang reach Manila in 14 minutes. They can bomb us to the heavens. Wala tayong pangkontra niyan.
To other news now, a 6.1 magnitude earthquake jolted Taiwan on Thursday, the U.S. Geological Survey said, disrupting traffic and injuring 17 people. In the capital Taipei, high-rises swayed while some panicked school children fled their classrooms in eastern Yilan County, according to reports. The quake was felt across the island and a highway connecting Yilan and Hualien was shut down. An official at the Hualien County Fire Department said that 2 people were injured by falling rocks. The National Fire Agency said a Malaysian male tourist had been rushed to hospital in a critical condition after suffering a cardiac arrest, a leg fracture, and head injuries. The agency added that there were also 15 injuries reported around Taipei and that 2 buildings in the city were temporarily evacuated due to structural damages after the tremor. Taipei's metro system was closed for over an hour for safety checks following the quake, while the Taiwan Railway Administration also suspended some of its services in the East Coast for several hours. The quake struck at 1:01 p.m. local time at a depth of 19 kilometers in eastern Hualien County. The Central Weather Bureau also put its magnitude at 6.1. The USGS had earlier measured it as a 6.0 quake, but later revised it to 6.1.
That's something new, huh?
Indonesian authorities warned Thursday against unrest as a firebrand ex-general rejected unofficial election results that appeared to hand over President Joko Widodo another term as leader of the world's 3rd biggest democracy. Indonesia's President Joko Widodo declared victory on Thursday in the race to lead the world's 3rd largest democracy. He said unofficial results showed his ticket had attracted 54% of the popular vote in the poll. Widodo ran with Islamic cleric Maruf Amin against former military general Prabowo Subianto, who secured 45% of votes according to unofficial quick counts of sample ballots by private pollsters. Prabowo has also claimed victory, citing internal polls as showing he won 62% of the vote. He claimed that cheating had been widespread across the country during the election. The General Election Commission's website put him at about 45% early on Thursday based on results from 808 of more than 800,000 polling stations. To India now, millions of voters, including in Agra, home to the iconic Taj Mahal, cast their ballots as the second round of the country's enormous national election begins. Authorities deployed tens of thousands of security forces as the second round of the country's national election kicked off. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has put protecting the nation at the center of his campaign to secure a second five-year term. While seen as the favorite, he faces an increasingly tough challenge from opposition Congress Party leader Rahul Gandhi. Gandhi has gone on a relentless attack against the economic record of Modi's Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP. Thousands of candidates from more than 2,000 parties are competing for 543 seats in Parliament. The last vote is on May 19, and final results will be released on May 23. The news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Health is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort to seek ways to take care of it. That includes professional medical help from the best available. The Manila
Welcome back. North Korea's Kim Jong-un has supervised the test firing of a new tactical weapon with a powerful warhead, according to state media on Thursday, and in the first test of its kind since nuclear negotiations with Washington stalled. The test marks a ratcheting up of tensions weeks after a summit between Kim and U.S. President Donald Trump collapsed without agreement. It also comes after satellite imagery suggested heightened activity at a nuclear test site. Earlier in the week, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a U.S. monitor, said activity had been detected at Yongbyon, the North's main nuclear testing facility. The think tank said evidence suggested Pyongyang may be reprocessing radioactive material into bomb fuel. In February, Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un met in the Vietnamese capital of Hanoi to discuss denuclearization, but discussions broke down and both leaders left abruptly. Last week, Mr. Kim said Trump needed to have the right attitude for talks to continue. According to the Korean Central News Agency, or KCNA, the test was overseen by the North Korean leader himself. KCNA also reported that the test was conducted in various modes of firing at different targets, which analysts believe means the weapon could be launched from land, sea, or air. Now, Mr. Kim said the development was of very weighty significance in increasing the combat power of the People's Army. Meanwhile, North Korea on Thursday demanded the removal of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo from talks over its banned nuclear program, hours after the isolated state claimed to have tested a new kind of weapon. Describing Pompeo as reckless and immature, the Foreign Ministry said it wanted him replaced by another interlocutor, a demand that significantly ups the ante in a sensitive diplomatic standoff. I'm afraid that if Pompeo engages in the talks again, the table will be lousy once again and the talks will become entangled, Kwon Jong-gun, Director General of the Ministry's Department of American Affairs, said, according to the official KCNA news agency. Therefore, even in the case of possible resumption of the dialogue with the U.S., I wish our dialogue counterpart would not be Pompeo, but another person who is more careful and mature and in communicating with us. Now, Kwon, whom KCNA said was responding to a question from one of its journalists, said Leader Kim had made clear that the U.S. attitude has to change. He said Pompeo was standing in the way of a resumption of talks. The North has lashed out at Pompeo on several occasions for backing what it called, quote, gangster-like negotiating tactics. The U.S. cannot move us one iota by its current way of thinking. In his previous visits to Pyongyang, Pompeo was granted audiences with our chairman of the State Affairs Commission for several times and pleaded for the denuclearization. However, after sitting the other way around, he spouted reckless remarks hurting the dignity of our supreme leadership at Congress hearings last week to unveil his mean character by himself, thus stunning the reasonable people. The comments were released hours after Pyongyang announced the test firing of a new tactical weapon with a powerful warhead, the first such test since nuclear negotiations with Washington stalled.
Very much looking forward to it.
Meanwhile, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will visit Russia in late April for his first meeting with President Vladimir Putin, according to Moscow. Following an invitation from Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong-un will visit Russia in the second half of April, the Kremlin said in a statement on its website. The announcement comes after North Korea announced it had tested a new tactical weapon with a powerful warhead as denuclearization talks with Washington appear to stall. The Kremlin didn't provide details on the exact date or location of the meeting, but Russian, South Korean, and Japanese media earlier reported it would be in Russia's Far East. Putin has long expressed his readiness to meet with Kim. Now, Russia has relatively warm ties with the reclusive regime and provides some food aid. The last summit between a Russian and North Korean head of state came in 2011 when Kim's father, Kim Jong-il, traveled to Siberia to meet Dmitry Medvedev, then Russia's president. Kim Jong-il, who died shortly after the visit, told Medvedev his state was prepared to renounce nuclear testing. In other news, President Donald Trump vetoed a resolution from Congress directing him to end U.S. support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen. In a message, Trump said, This resolution is an unnecessary, dangerous attempt to weaken my constitutional authorities, endangering the lives of American citizens and brave service members both today and in the future. The veto was the second of his presidency. The resolution, which passed the U.S. House of Representatives earlier this month and the Senate in March, was a historic milestone, as it was the first time in history that a measure invoking the 1973 War Powers Resolution reached the president's desk. Many lawmakers have taken issue with Trump's emphasis on ties with Saudi Arabia since the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Turkey last year. Democrats argued that U.S. involvement in the Yemen conflict through intelligence sharing, logistical support, and now discontinued aerial refueling is unconstitutional without congressional authority. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, the country's most senior Democratic politician, took aim at Trump's veto in a series of tweets on Tuesday. The conflict in Yemen is a horrific humanitarian crisis that challenges the conscience of the entire world, Pelosi wrote. Yet the president has cynically chosen to contravene a bipartisan bicameral vote of the Congress, perpetuate America's shameful involvement in this heartbreaking crisis. Yemen has been devastated by a conflict that escalated in March 2015 when the rebel Houthi movement seized control of much of the west of the country and forced President Abdrabbuh Mansur Hadi to flee abroad. Alarmed by the rise of a group they believe to be backed militarily by regional Shia power Iran, Saudi Arabia and 8 other mostly Sunni Arab states began an air campaign aimed at restoring Mr. Hadi's government. The U.S. has provided billions of dollars of weapons and intelligence to the coalition. The United Nations says at least 7,000 civilians have been killed in the country, with 65% of the deaths attributed to airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition. Now, U.S. senators have accused Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of ordering the murder of Mr. Khashoggi, but Saudi prosecutors have insisted it was a rogue operation and that the agents were not acting on his orders. President Trump first used his veto last month after Congress voted to block his declaration of a national emergency on the U.S. southern border in order to secure funding for his border wall. Now, nearly 4 weeks after President Trump declared himself completely exonerated, Americans will on Thursday U.S. time get a chance to see the evidence themselves with the release of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's final report on Russian meddling in the 2016 election.
I think it's very important to have the Mueller report be fully shared with everyone in the United States and the world, because we deserve to know what's going on with these politicians.
Ultimately, when the Mueller report comes out tomorrow, I probably won't be one of the people who are rushing to read it, but I know that a number of politicians, as well as some other Americans, have been looking to see what it says. It'll be interesting to see what exactly is revealed to the public.
Widespread doubt and suspicion has remained in the air despite Attorney General Bill Barr's March 24 statement that the Mueller investigation found no criminal collusion by Trump's 2016 campaign with Russia and insufficient evidence of obstruction of justice. The details of the 400-page report, which could come out with heavy redactions, could determine whether Democrats in Congress pursue impeachment of the president. They could also have an impact on Trump's chances for re-election in 2020. Barr and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, who oversaw the 22-month Mueller investigation, plan a press conference at 9:30 a.m. local time Thursday morning to discuss the report. Since Barr's brief summary of the findings on March 24, Trump has alternately heralded a victory over his opponents and blasted the investigation as illegitimate and an attempted coup against his government.
I have not seen the Mueller report. I have not read the Mueller report. I won. No collusion, no obstruction. I won.
But the one sentence of the report that was released in the Attorney General's summary is far more tantalizing. Mueller wrote, While this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it does not exonerate him.
Including the FBI's policy to provide extensive financial benefits.
Eagle News International will be right back. An American teenager whose obsession with the Columbine high school massacre set off school closures and a manhunt in the Denver area has been found dead from an apparently self-inflicted gunshot wound, according to officials. Now, media reports said 18-year-old Saul Pais's body was discovered near the base of Mount Evans, which dominates the Denver skyline. Jeff Schrader, the Jefferson County Sheriff, told a news conference Pais was deceased from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. Her body was discovered by the FBI, which separately confirmed her death and also indicated it was a suicide. Authorities had mounted a massive search for Pais after she traveled from Florida to Colorado, bought a pump-action shotgun and ammunition. Pais was not even born when two Columbine students launched their attack with an assortment of guns and bags full of pipe bombs, killing 12 fellow students and a teacher before taking their own lives. Security fears have soared because Saturday is the 20th anniversary of what at the time was the deadliest school shooting in U.S. history, setting off an era of similar massacres at schools and public venues. Colorado authorities, who said Pais was armed and considered extremely dangerous, had ordered around 500,000 students to stay at home due to ongoing safety concerns. Now, one of them saw the killers, while the other just heard the gunshots, one after another, that killed 13 people at Columbine High School and wounded more than 20 others. 20 years after that massacre of 12 students and one teacher in Colorado, 2 survivors have yet to heal their wounds, and these gashes rip open again every time there is another mass shooting in America. Take a look.
I would say the biggest thing that has changed for me since the shooting and in the 20 years since is that when you're a teenager, you have this feeling of invincibility, that nothing can go wrong. And then after something like that happens, especially when you're one of the more direct people involved with something like that, you realize just how fragile everything is and how everything can just change in an instant.
Guns are not the problem. And this is coming from a victim of gun violence more than once. Mental health, in my opinion, is a far bigger fight and a far bigger question and a far bigger interest, because no gun ever jumped up off the ground and shot someone. It's who's holding that weapon.
A man was arrested Wednesday night after entering St Patricks Cathedral in New York, carrying 2 cans of gasoline, lighter fluid, and butane lighters, according to police. This was just days after a fire badly damaged the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. New York Police Department Deputy Commissioner John Miller said the arrested man claimed he was taking a shortcut through the cathedral after his car ran out of fuel. But his answers were, quote, inconsistent and evasive. We don't know what his mindset was, what was his motive, Miller told a press conference on the steps of the cathedral, a neo-Gothic structure in the heart of Manhattan. The man was confronted by a cathedral security officer and was told he cannot go inside carrying those items, according to the police. Now, at that point, some gasoline apparently spills out onto the floor as he turned around, Miller said. After an alarm was raised, officers from the NYPD's Counter-Terrorism Bureau caught up to the man and arrested him after questioning. His basic story was he was cutting through the cathedral, that his car had run out of gas, Miller said. And then he continued, we took a look at the vehicle, it wasn't out of gas, and at that point he was taken into custody. Now, this comes just days after a fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral in France. Doctors, journalists, students, and farmers are among more than 60,000 Nicaraguans who have fled the country, fearing for their lives since anti-government demonstrations began last April. UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, said the development coincides with an appeal from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, who urged the government to allow protests to take place without violence on the anniversary of the start of the troubles later this week. According to Ms. Bachelet's office, hundreds of activists have been arrested in recent months in Nicaragua, and 300 people reportedly died between April and August last year alone. The situation continues to deteriorate, and UNHCR's Elizabeth Russell said that families with young children are now taking extreme measures to cross the border.
An estimated 62,000 people have fled into neighbouring countries, with the vast majority, some 55,500, seeking refuge in Costa Rica. Among those seeking asylum are students, former public officials, opposition figures, journalists, doctors, human rights defenders and farmers. A significant number arrive in need of health care, psychological support, shelter and food assistance. The people are fleeing and coming from different parts of Nicaragua, and they're travelling to the Costa Rican border, trying to avoid contact with the police and paramilitary groups. Some are travelling in trucks, hidden among sacks. The kinds of reasons that people have been giving for fleeing, the fear of losing their lives, being attacked or kidnapped by paramilitary groups. Some have received direct threats or have been persecuted. Others fear for their lives because their communities have been a target of violence, or some because their relatives are being sought. So we do feel that it is overwhelmingly a refugee flow. As of March 2019, some 29,500 Nicaraguans had formally filed asylum applications. But with reception capacity overstretched, 26,000 others are waiting to have their claims formalized.
The Portuguese island of Madeira began 3 days of mourning after 29 German tourists died after their bus spun off the road and tumbled down a slope before crashing into a house. Take a look.
Temos ali mais 4 ambulâncias.
The administration of U.S. President Trump says it will impose sanctions on Venezuela's central bank while criticizing Russia and Cuba for backing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. White House National Security Advisor John Bolton made the announcement in a speech to a Cuban exile group in Florida.
This afternoon, I'm also pleased to announce new sanctions against the Central Bank of Venezuela to restrict U.S. transactions with this bank and prohibit its access to U.S. dollars.
Bolton said the United States would bar Americans from traveling to Cuba except to visit family, reversing the loosening under Obama that had started to open the cash-strapped island to U.S. tourism. Bolton also announced restrictions under which no individual can remit more than $1,000 per quarter to Cuba, pledging these new measures will help steer American dollars away from the Cuban regime. The Treasury Department said it had taken precautions to ensure that ordinary Venezuelans can use debit and credit cards even with the blacklisting of the central bank. Meanwhile, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro slammed as illegal and immoral the new U.S. sanctions against its central bank in the latest U.S. effort to strangle Maduro's cash flow.
Hoy volvieron a tomar un conjunto de sanciones unilaterales totalmente ilegales e inmoral. Ahora contra una institución que es sagrada como institución en el mundo entero, el Banco Central de Venezuela. Los bancos centrales en el mundo son sagrados, todos los países los respetan. Nadie se mete con un banco central de ningún país.
Eagle News International will be right back. India's debt-stricken Jet Airways halted all of its operations after failing to secure emergency funding from lenders, leaving it teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Jet had asked a consortium of lenders led by the State Bank of India to urgently provide 4 billion rupees or $57.5 million, but said that this had not been forthcoming. The airline was once India's second biggest by market share, but is on the brink of collapse with debts of more than $1 billion. Jet was operating just 5 planes on Wednesday because it could not pay its bills, down from a fleet of more than 120 at its peak. The carrier has canceled hundreds of flights in recent weeks, stranding thousands of passengers. A collapse of Jet and the loss of more than 20,000 jobs would deal a blow to Prime Minister Narendra Modi's pro-business reputation as he seeks a second term in ongoing national elections. AirAsia's third attempt for a low-cost carrier in Vietnam have fallen through with the termination of a joint venture with local partners. The carrier initially announced the joint venture in March of 2017 and had reiterated its commitment to the initiative in December of 2018. The decision marks a setback for AirAsia Chief Executive Tony Fernandez, who views Vietnam as a core part of Southeast Asia's airline industry. The departure from the Vietnam joint venture with Gu Minh and Hai Au marks AirAsia's third failure to start an airline in Vietnam. Despite the most recent setback, AirAsia maintains that it's still interested in Vietnam owing to its geography, growing aviation market, and overall potential. China said there's still much work to finish on the text of a trade agreement with the United States. Take a look.
最近以来，中美经贸协议文本磋商不断取得新的进展，但仍有不少工作尚待完成。双方将继续通过各种有效方式保持密切的沟通。比上年同期
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday held out hope the current trade talks with China will be a success and said an announcement on the status was due shortly. The two sides have exchanged tariffs on more than $360 billion in two-way trade since last year, weighing on both countries' manufacturing sectors and unnerving global stock markets. Samsung announced it will inspect units of its highly anticipated folding smartphone after some reviewers reported screen damage. A handful of US-based reporters were given the flagship Galaxy Fold phones priced at $1,980 ahead of the model's official release next week. And they reported screen issues within days of using the devices. The screen on my Galaxy Fold review unit is completely broken and unusable just 2 days in, Bloomberg's Mark Gunman tweeted. And Dieter Bohn of The Verge said, something happened to my Galaxy Fold screen and caused a bulge. It's broken. Samsung spent nearly 8 years developing the Galaxy Fold, which is part of the South Korean tech giant strategy to propel growth with groundbreaking gadgets. We will thoroughly inspect these units in person to determine the cause of the matter, Samsung said in a statement after the reports of the screen damaged. In 2016, Samsung was forced to cease production of its Galaxy Note 7 phone after reports that the device's battery were catching fire. The company recalled millions of phones due to the hardware failure.
Hello, London.
The news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back after this short break. stoppage time, Raheem Sterling had the strike that would have sealed his hat trick and seen City through, ruled out after Sergio Aguero was shown to be offside in the build-up.
It's cruel, but this is what it is. We have to accept it. So it was a nice game for everybody. A lot of alternatives after 20 minutes, 2-3. And second half we did everything. So we could not easy to create chances. We create a lot. So we make mistakes in that competition punish us a lot. But we knew it. But we scored the goals that we needed. Unfortunately, at the end was a bad end for us. So congratulations, Tottenham and his team and his sides, and all the best for the semi-finals. VAR. So VAR. It's just to see that maybe the goal from your end is handball. For one angle is handball. For the angle he saw the referee is not. So, but I'm fine for the fair football, for the fair decision. So the referee must be helped. Sometimes good, is offside. What can I say? So it's nothing. I think in the future and even the present will be fair, and that's all.
I cannot say it's my best game because 4-3 for Manchester United. I think it was unbelievable to be on Champions League, playing quarter-final against Manchester City and beat them, because I think in both legs, I think it was very competitive and both games were even. And to score 3 goals here against Manchester City is not easy.
The Polynesian culture in the Central and South Pacific have long been associated with longboats or canoes, indicative of their skills as long-distance ocean voyagers. Now these days, places like Hawaii and Samoa continue to make these boats, but mainly for recreation or competition, such as the one recently held in American Samoa. Arian Torresuan has more.
Fautasi refers to a Samoan boat, similar to a longboat. They measure around 100 feet or 13 meters in length and can accommodate a rowing crew of up to 50. The literal meaning of Fautasi is to build a swan, which reflects the need for teamwork in rowing the boats. In the past, the Fautasi, which were carved out of tree trunks, were the main mode of transportation between islands in the Samoan region. Today, Fautasi are mainly used in racing events, such as the one here in American Samoa. This year's race starts out in the water near the international airport and finishes at Pango Pango Harbor before a large cheering crowd.
Because Fautasi, that's our first game. Fautasi and a creek. Every village they all compete. It's like we love this game, Fautasi. I wish ladies can compete with the men, but cannot, just only men. But this is our event.
There are 8 teams this year. During an interview with Samoa News, this Pae-Pae Ulupo is guaranteed to be 100% on race day. Its team members are uniquely diverse, with the youngest just 14 years old and the oldest being 50 years old. Pae-Pae Ulupo's weeks of training and hard work during the race finally paid off, as they crossed a large rope above the water, finishing in the first place. Residents and visitors alike took advantage of the weather and festive atmosphere by relaxing along the water to watch the race.
So we're glad this is our first time we came over here and we watched the Fautasi. Okay. But we live in Honolulu, never been, came on TV, but we don't, came on TV, but we were like seeing in person. Come on over and watch our Polynesian style. I think Hawaii have a canoe racing, but not like Samoan. The way we make our own custom. So come on over, they watch. Probably they like Polynesian style, you know what I mean?
Fantasy 2019 is just one of the many events here in the territory, leading up to its celebration on April 17. From Pango Pango in American Samoa, I am Arian Torres Suwan, 1 with 25.
Thank you, Arian. And now let's discover the Townsville Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Cultural Center. Here's our EBC correspondent from Australia, Laurie Kate Salomon.
Tropical North Queensland is the home of many of Australia's most authentic Indigenous tourism attractions. These cultural encounters range from art exhibitions, such as the Cairns Indigenous Art Fair held mid-year, and the Lower Aboriginal Dance Festival, which is attended by more than 20 communities from Cape York. This magnificent cultural experience can also be felt at the Townsville Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Cultural Center. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people have lived in this country for more than 50,000 years. The local organization, Umbrella, has taken the initiative to celebrate and promote the rich culture which Australia's First Nations people has cultivated through the years. The Townsville Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Cultural Center will entertain and educate audiences through various displays of exhibitions and performances, making the venue as the ideal place to promote cultural artworks to the wider community. The facility also aims to provide insights into the traditional and modern cultural practices of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The Townsville Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Cultural Center is located in the Reef HQ complex at Townsville City Centre, Queensland, Australia. Reporting from Eagle News International Australia, this is Laurie Kate Solomon, and I am 1 with 25.
And with that, we end tonight's program. For everyone here on Eagle News International, I'm Alma Angeles, always 1 with 25.
Ang susunod na programa ay rated PG. Ito ay nangangailangan